I'm Edward Lawrence. I'm here with Mexican Economy Minister Ildefonso Guajardo. Thank you for joining me today. You just negotiated a revised NAFTA deal, or as the president calls the United States-Mexico trade agreement. Would you like to see Canada come in?
No, definitely. No, but let me tell you and put it into context. What we have finished is a very important step towards giving the Mexican economy certainty. We have an understanding in the totality of U.S.-Mexico commercial relationship that can easily translate in the basis when Canada joins in to come very quickly to a trilateral agreement. That's what we have. Now, the president was very creative trying to anticipate names for this agreement. And obviously, if the agreement is Mexico-U.S., that's a good name. But the agreement we want, and we want to make the attempt to make it inclusive in the original way. So definitely there is going to be a new name, but we have altogether created one.
So it can stand alone, but there are proposals to bring in Canada? Is that how?
What I'm saying, we negotiated on the basis of a trilateral framework. And it's very important to think about that because, for instance, rules of integration are thought in the trilateral context. Give you an example, the auto industry, the aerospace industry. We have a very big degree of integration. Obviously, for Mexico, we have 80% of our trade with the US and 20% of our trade with Canada. Is no question which of the two is the biggest economy in the relationship with Mexico. But having a North America integrated in a trade deal is very relevant, not just because of the value of the branding, but it's also very relevant because of the reality of integration. So we are here waiting to engage, hopefully today, in a trilateral context to continue our progress. We completed the first stage. Remember that every time, even the first visit of Prime Minister Trudeau to Washington, the message was, it is going to be very easy to solve the relationship with Canada. The one that is very complex and very difficult is the relationship with Mexico. Well, guess what? Good news for Canada. We have solved the first part of this equation. Now we need to solve the second part.
You mentioned autos. The U.S. wanted 75% of a car made in Canada or North America to fall under the lower tariffs. Is that a hard position to come around to? It's up to up from 62.5. Is that difficult?
Obviously the companies have to do adjustments, investments, but 70% of our exports to the U.S. are very close to that business model. They may have to do additional efforts, but by the 1st of January of 2020, when this agreement is supposed to come into progress, into operation, 70% of our exports will meet the rule, which means that they will have unlimited access at zero tariffs. Now, the other 30% will have to take a little bit more time. Therefore, they may not meet the rule. What we have achieved for those companies is that the MFN access of today, of 2.5, is being as assured for them in the middle of discussions about the 232 in cars. So therefore, for them, what you are guaranteeing is to protect their existing capacity, is to allow for two plants that are being finished right now, and to allow for growth for the coming 3 years. And therefore, that gives you a competitive advantage vis-a-vis the rest of the world. And but that, remember, that will be something outside the agreement that will be adversely affecting the world. And in this case, the Mexican industry will have had an agreement to be assured that will be protected to that end.
Does this, you talk about the back and forth, does this agreement take into effect the tariffs? Does it eliminate any tariffs going forward?
One of the things that I have omitted with the Mexican Senate, I'm committed with them 4 objectives. The first one, wherever we landed, should not include any restrictions in terms of tariffs or quotas for trade. The second is that we'll modernize an agreement that is more than 24 years old and that didn't include telecom, digital trade, SMEs, which was in a bad need to account for the new tendencies of business. The other commitment is to make it inclusive, that also defends the rights and the rights of workers and a good environmental a good environment in North America. So this agreement also has to guarantee the new times. That has to be inclusive.
You talk about also intellectual property. I mean, that's one of the things. Is there protections in there for intellectual
Sure.
property? And you talk about agriculture specifically. You have new technology there with gene editing of plants. So it's incorporated all of that. Right?
Well, let me tell you, it's incorporated in the way in which already you have these commitments in GATT that you cannot discriminate in terms of imports. Now, that has nothing to do with your own regulations for planting these transformed seeds. So that's a whole different part.
Okay.
These allow for the trade, which is happening today. So you buy cornflakes that have been produced with U.S. corn that are part of these new technologies.
Was it important for you to bring in those new technologies because the world has advanced? You mentioned digital, that's e-books. We're talking about electronic books. How important is that to include that and modernize?
And very important, not just only for that, because remember, we have a reform on telecom that guarantees free market practices. And that is very important for business.
Why?
Because it lowers, new manufacturing depends on internet. The Internet of Things is mostly on the digital era. And therefore, the access to new technologies and to the network is very important. If you have a regulated market with no competition, it makes it very expensive for new players to really come into the new tendencies. So this new agreement is thought for the future of the economy as well.
Let's go back to the autos for 1 second. In the Mexican economy, you agreed in there 40 to 45% of a car would be built by workers making $16.
For light cars, 40. For pickups, 45.
Okay. Can Mexico's economy reach that $16 an hour?
No, but remember, we have to think about the full rule. What does that mean? Is today part of the car is being made in Mexico, part of the car is being made in the U.S., and part of the car is made in Canada. Now, with the new rule, some parts of those cars were being made in Japan, in China, in other places. Now, those have to be made in North America. So you are going to increase the size of the cake. Now, from that increased cake, 60% can be made in any wage zone, which includes Mexico. Therefore, 40% will be split between Canada and the US, and 60%. So it depends from which side you look at things. So I think that in the free market solution, we keep on. Now, the growth will be better distributed, as was the aim of the U.S. But it will be a faster growth and a bigger growth.
Last thing, how difficult was this? 5 weeks of intensive negotiations. How difficult was it to do this negotiations?
Not different from the challenges that you have when you have to define a solution. Either you do it or you don't do it in a time frame. But also in this was very important to send clear signals. First, to land an agreement that is good for the parties involved, but at the same time send the right signals. As you notice in your permanent presence outside USTR, a new member of the team joined us in these last weeks, which is a representative of the incoming government in Mexico. That was extremely important because we are sending a signal as a country that we are passing the torch from one government to other, regardless of differences in public policy, but with one aim: to protect the interest of the country and to assure that this agreement is going to be good and that there is going to be a chance that one president will sign it and the new legislative will consider it.
Was it important to get it done before the December 1st, the new inauguration?
It was, the idea is to have it done in a way in which the outgoing government will have a chance to sign it.
Okay, great. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mexico's Economy Minister.
Thank you,
Guajardo. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.